I want to talk about Chipotle. And they did something that we really don't see enough of. They opened up a new role within their organization, and it's not a senior brand manager. It's not a CMO. It's not someone reporting to the CMO. It's actually replacing the CMO. They created a chief brand officer role. And the person filling this role is one of the most celebrated creative storytellers in our industry, maybe in our generation. And that is Fernando Machado. And this is really worth talking about, not just for Chipotle, but I think for the entire industry. I see a lot of roles starting to open up with chief storyteller and finding a lot of journalism roles. And I feel like a lot of the companies out there are leaning so much on AI that they're finally realizing that we need someone, a human, a storyteller, to wield that technology. And so I want to talk about that a little bit more. But first, let's talk about Fernando. So who is Fernando? He spent 18 years, which is, nearly a career at Unilever. He was leading Dove's Real Beauty campaign globally. And that led to him joining Burger King, which is really where his name and his work rose to prominence. He joined in 2014, spent about 7 years really building one of the most creatively celebrated brands in QSR, but in the industry. I know the creative departments that I was a part of and leading at the time, we were really looking to Burger King to see what they would do next and really what they could come up with. All that work, all that effort led to over 200 Cannes Lions, which is one of the most celebrated awards and recognition in our industry, 5 Grand Prix. And it's not really a resume that he's building. It's more of a legacy built on a belief that brand is the competitive advantage. Creative storytelling is a creative advantage, and the data is backing it up. Let's talk about Burger King a little bit more. Before Fernando, Burger King was playing it pretty safe. And over his time there, he made it impossible to ignore. And that's a pretty great transformation. You know, we got work like the Proud Whopper, the Whopper Detour. I think we've all seen the Moldy Whopper, which is this time lapse of a burger decomposing over a long period of time. The whole point was proving that real food goes bad. That was in direct kind of competition to McDonald's, where we've seen the Big Macs kind of on eBay that look brand new that are several years old. So they saw an opportunity and they ran right at it, which is incredible. Fernando specifically won Creative Marketer of the Year, Client of the Year, Advertiser of the Year. But what's cool is system-wide sales grew over 25% during his time there. So the awards and the business results kind of moved together. And that's the whole point. Great brand storytelling isn't a cost center, it's a growth engine. So the title, Chief Brand Officer. And I want to talk about this for a second because I see this is where the industry is moving. I certainly hope this is where the industry is moving. And I want to celebrate this move. Chief Brand Officer, it's not a VP of brand reporting to a CMO. It's not head of creative services. It is a Chief Brand Officer, a legitimate seat at the table. And it's a mandate to build something that lasts. And I think that's a signal. The companies creating this role aren't thinking about next quarter. They're thinking about the next decade. And the brands that think that way are the ones that are going to win. The ones that are investing in storytelling and finding this system to lean into your brand and leverage that for creative storytelling, I think will really be the difference, especially in this age of AI where we find ourselves not really knowing where we're going. We're just trying to keep up as fast as we can without really a set destination. So I think there's a bigger picture to consider here. Fernando has shown this data publicly. Brand investment directly correlated to sales growth. And not just creative recognition, business results. When you build a brand that people feel something about, when you tell stories that are true and compelling and consistent, you stop chasing clicks and downloads and conversions. You start earning loyalty that compounds. I think this gets to authenticity, knowing who you are and sticking with it time and time again. That loyalty, it really outlasts any campaign. In fact, that's what compounds. And it makes the next product launch easier. And the one after that, even easier. And that's the ROI of brand. It just takes longer to show up on the spreadsheet. The brands that understand this are going to be the ones that stand the test of time. Chipotle already knows this, and they proved it over a decade ago. They created an animated film called Back to the Start. It's about a farmer returning to sustainable practices. The nice little tension there is Willie Nelson, a very familiar voice, covering Coldplay. And it's one of the greatest brand films ever made, in my opinion. I'm super optimistic that we're going to start to see more of this. More brands creating chief brand officer roles, more companies giving creative storytellers a real seat at the table, more investment as brand infrastructure, not decoration, not as a cost center, but the thing that makes everything else work harder. So in close, I'm very optimistic that we're going to see more of this. More brands creating chief brand officer roles, more companies giving creative storytellers an actual seat at the table, more investment as brand as infrastructure, not as decoration, not as an afterthought, not as some cost center, as the thing that makes everything else work harder, as the thing that gives companies a competitive advantage. And I think Fernando Machado at Chipotle is a signal that the best brands aren't chasing the algorithm, they're building something worth believing in. That's the whole game, and I'm here for every second of it.